It was nearly a year before Eleanor was transferred to Nairobi, and not a very good one. She neglected to visit her clinics with her former regularity, and spent many an afternoon with a wet towel around her neck rather than drive to Morogoro to deliver pills that clients persistently took all at once. Furthermore, Tanzanian villages and Dar itself were beginning to waft with the gaunt, empty-eyed specter of widespread HIV. Weak, matchstick mothers would arrive at Pathfinder's clinics, and there was absolutely nothing to do. The irony of trying to prevent more births in towns where up to half the adult population was dying was not lost on Eleanor, nor was it lost on her patients. Contraception in these circumstances transformed from a perverse Western practice to flagrant insanity, and it shattered Eleanor to watch families bankrupt themselves on bogus witch doctor therapies, even if she conceded that her own people's medicines were no more effective. Through the long white days with little to distract her, she did think of Calvin. She abjured herself to expect little despite his mystical talk. So many Wazungu, after a steady newspaper diet of possessed grandmothers, curses of impotence, and whole villages running riot from the spirits of the ancestors, began to talk a pigeon witchcraft of their own. She pondered the contradiction between the icy things he said and the warmth she felt in his presence, as if Calvin's coldness calloused the same helpless sympathy she fell prey to herself. There are people who find it easy to be generous in theory, but can't be bothered by the real problems of anyone who smells bad. There are others attracted to being hard in theory, but who will involve themselves impulsively in finding you a house. That, if she didn't miss her guess, was Calvin. Eleanor employed a mental exercise, with that car, not always hypothetical, that sorted her friends out in a hurry. It is past midnight. She is driving back to her prefab. She is still miles out. The Land Rover stalls. The battery is old, scummy, and shorting out. She has a radio, but you do not call the AAA in Tanzania. Whom does she raise on shortwave? And whom, even if it means curling up in the seat till morning, does she not? Oddly, she knew she could call Calvin, who would arrive jolly as you please with a crate of beer to make a night of it. She thought he was a nice man. To the very end, she would maintain he was a nice man. Duplicitous, as her organization had so recently been described, the idea of family planning as a means of population control in a country where contraceptive prevalence remained below 5% was absurd, so Eleanor didn't think in terms of demographics anymore. She regarded herself as providing an everyday service, even if Pathfinder did get its support from agencies with bolder designs. She consoled herself there were times in her own life that she was grateful for the pill, and to extend this opportunity for pleasure without consequences seemed a reputable calling, if not very glamorous. For she no longer imagined she was preventing worldwide famine or raising the standard of living for the poor. In lowering the sights of her work, she found it duller, but no longer ridiculous. She had helped a few unmarried girls escape the wrath of their families, a handful of already overworked mothers, and in this country women did everything, find a contraceptive they could hide from their husbands, whose precious manhood would be insulted if they discovered their wives used birth control. In Eleanor's case, the pills had worked a bit too well. As she drew into her late 30s, the age at which many of her clients became grandmothers, even her own workers felt sorry for her. Among some tribes of East Africa, a childless woman was a contagion, isolated in a separate hut outside the village, not allowed to touch pregnant wives, and sometimes stoned for being hexed. In Eleanor's darker moods, the word barren would take on an interior complexion as she scanned the hot, dead landscape, unsure why she was here, her face so dry she was out of moisturizer again. She submitted good-naturedly to nurses teasing about visiting gentlemen from U.S. Aid or Ford, but the men never stayed longer than a few days and were odiously well-behaved, or simply odious. It was when the teasing stopped that the situation got under her skin, the downcast, shaking heads when one more prospect had fled. These were the times in private when she snapped pens that didn't write, threw the phone to the floor, and pulled maliciously at condoms, stretching them at her desk.